from the engagement. This is very important. So we come to the final unit, which is on Unit 6, responding to non-compliance with laws and regulations. Responding to non-compliance with laws and regulations. All right, Madam Teller, your hand is up. Please go ahead and interject freely.
Your recording stopped. Have you?
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's back. Yeah, it's back now. Yes,
right.
Yes, it's back. Thank you for taking note of that. Thank you. All right, so the IFAC code. The IFAC code provides guidance on responding to non-compliance with laws and regulations. So non-compliance can be intentional or actually unintentional. So for example, of non-compliance, we have fraud, corruption, and bribery. We have money laundering, terrorist financing, and proceeds of crime. Then we have security markets and trading violations. We have banking and other financial products and services breaches. Then we have data. Protection violations. Then we have tax and pension liabilities, and we have payments defaults. We also have environmental protection breaches. We have public health and safety violations. So the non-compliance framework explains the process to follow when encountering suspected fraud or illegal acts. We have the circumstances in which confidentiality is overridden and the matter disclosed will help to whistleblow. So the crucial rule here is for auditors is that you cannot simply resign from an engagement because of identified or suspected non-compliance without the matter being appropriately addressed. It's very crucial for auditors to take note of that. You can't just simply resign. You have to address the matter, and if it's beyond you, then you think of resignation. So think of a building inspector. You see, a building inspector cannot just walk away from a dangerous building. They must report it, they must ensure action is taken and escalate it if needed. So similarly, an auditor cannot just resign when they find non-compliance. They must address the matter. So here is a mnemonic for non-compliance for you to remember: fraud, corruption, and bribery. M is money laundering, terrorist financing, examples of non-compliance. Then we have security market violations, we have bank and financial products, then we have data protection, then we have tax and pension liabilities, and we have environmental protection and public health and safety. So these are areas of non-compliance examples you could remember. Now, when an accountant or professional accountant or an auditor becomes aware of non-compliance matter, what do they do? What should they do? Number one is to obtain an understanding of the matter. What happened? Who is involved? What's the extent of the matter, the effect? Number two is to advise management. Advise management to take appropriate and timely actions to rectify, resolve, remediate, and mitigate the consequences. You need to advise management to deter future non-compliance and also to disclose to an appropriate authority. Also, the auditor needs to determine further action after he has advised management. He needs to consider the appropriateness of management's response. Is it timely? Has it been adequately investigated? Are actions being taken to rectify or deter the matter? Are steps being taken to reduce recurrence risk? Has it been adequately disclosed? So these are questions to ask to determine further actions the auditor will take. Also, to access public interest. You see, the auditor needs to determine if the action is needed in the public interest, and he needs to consider the legal framework, the urgency, and the management integrity, and also likelihood of recurrence. So the public interest should be at the heart of the auditor in determining non-compliance are resolved very amicably. Now, also, he needs to take further action if there is need, where he needs to disclose to the appropriate authority without legal requirement, then withdraw from an engagement where is permitted by law or regulation if non-compliance persists. So when may the auditor disclose to an appropriate authority? You see, the entity he's working for, if he's involved in bribery and corruption, then the auditor can disclose to an appropriate authority. Where the entity is regulated and the matter threatens the accountant's operating license, then he can disclose to an appropriate authority. Also, where the matter could result in adverse consequences to financial markets, then the auditor could disclose to an appropriate authority. Where products are harmful to public health or safety, are also likely to be sold to the public, then you can disclose to an appropriate authority. And also the entity is promoting a scheme to evade taxes, then the accountant can report to an appropriate authority. So think of non-compliance response like a fire drill. You investigate the fire, you obtain understanding, you tell management to act by advising them. You check if they are handling it, and you determine further action. So if they are not, then you call the fire brigade yourself to disclose to authority. So here is a mnemonic for the auditor's responsibility. You first obtain understanding of the non-compliance, you advise management, you determine appropriateness of response, then you assess public interest, then you disclose or withdraw, very importantly. So this mnemonic is what triggers reporting to appropriate authorities: bribery, regulatory identity where your license is threatened, adverse consequences in the financial markets, then health and safety reasons where the public harm or public interest is at stake. Then also tax evasion schemes are areas where the accountant must evaluate non-compliance and make sure they are dealt with very appropriately. So that's it for the 6 units and the last unit. Now we'll bring all of it together in a chapter review, and this is a quick recap of everything we've covered today. So before we move on, or before we stop here, you should be able to now describe the fundamental principles of the ICAN Code of Ethics around objectivity, integrity, competence, confidentiality, and professional behavior. You should be able to also explain the concepts of rules versus principle-based systems and the public interest. You should be able to also apply the conceptual framework to identify threats and also threats around self-interest, self-review, advocacy, familiarity, and intimidation, and also suggest appropriate safeguards. They should also be able to access ethical conflicts facing accountants in business or practice. They should be able to discuss how accountants can respond to a suspected instance of non-compliance. So if you can do all these, then you are in a great position to handle the ethical challenges you face as a professional accountant. So that brings us to the end of chapter 2 on the professional ethics and code of conduct. So I want you to take away one key message from today. You see, ethics is not an extra option. It is central to our professional identity and to everything we do as accountants. So it's very important to take note of that as we continue in our career. So thank you very much for your attention, and this is where we'll stop now. All right, so do we have any questions for these 6 units we just looked at, Madam T?